Hey! Hi guys, how's it going? It's Chris Sandeman back again for another live stream. If you are watching this video and it is Saturday, August 7th at 1:57 p.m. In Eastern Daylight Time, then you're watching live. And if it's not Saturday, August 7th, 2021, around 2 o'clock, then you're watching a pre-recorded video. Either way, just take a moment right now. You might as well just hit the thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube, because you know you're going to do it anyway, so you might as well do it now. Just get it out of the way. This lets more people find out about these videos and shares the love. So go ahead and do that. What else is going on here? Well, we're walking over to where the tour start is actually going to be, and just for early birds, and because we're not going to actually walk down the street that I'm walking on later on. It's called Remsen Street. Hey Jenny Jean, thanks for the purple heart. But I wanted to show you guys something that we're not going to see later on the heart of the tour. Hey Tage, what's up, brother? Hello to Canada. Michaela, you are live. See, you can tell because you said something and I've replied to you right away. So boom. Thanks for the cat tears, or the cat laughter tears, and hello back to you as well. So really quick, guys, I just want to show you something, and then we're going to keep on walking down to Borough Hall, the old Brooklyn town hall, and that's like where we're actually starting for our hour-long tour. Hey Mila, thanks for joining as well, appreciate it. So as people are saying hi and coming in, I just wanted to show you guys something really quick. You can see here. Good morning, Jill. Hello, welcome back to Brooklyn, New York. Hey, Rebecca. Hey, Hale. Good morning, everybody. Oh, it's like I feel like the Blues Brothers. We're getting the band back together again. So if you follow me on Instagram, you might have already seen this. But here we are at the corner of Hicks Street and Remsen Street. Brown signs denoting that we are in a historic district of New York City. It's the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. Actually, the first ever historic district ever since 1965. It's the first U.S. historic district after they kind of figured out historic districting. Hey, Nikki, what's going on? Shout out to Scotland. And Freddie Rivera, greetings from New York City. Fantastic, Freddie. Always great to have you back on. Good to see you, and welcome over to Brooklyn. I don't think you live in Brooklyn, Freddie, but you might do. So, well, what am I showing you guys? It's not actually these signs here. I want to show you these signs here, up against the wall. If you look, you can see that also says Hicks Street and Remsen Street. But take a look how much higher that sign is off the ground than like this sign, which is the regular street sign. Why is that sign up on the corner of the building up there? I mean, literally it's gotta be 2, 6, like 8 meters up on the side of the wall. And the reason is, this is not for modern day drivers. Those are for olden day drivers, that sign up there. Because it's actually for a horse and carriage driver who would be driving passengers around here in the late 1800s, before you're going to have automobiles dotting the streets. And that coach driver would sit so high up on his coach, you need to be able to read this sign up the building a little bit, just to know exactly where he was as he's driving around, which is kind of a cool little thing, you know. You see these little things around New York and you're like, I don't know why, but now you know. So, which is pretty neat. And Alexa, sorry for not saying hi right away. Alexa, thanks for being back again. Alexa, I actually really missed you during the Brooklyn Botanic Garden tour that we did yesterday. I was counting on either you or Jim to jump in and help me describe all these plants I was looking at. And give me the overview. So if you have time, tomorrow we are going to be going to the Queen's Botanical Garden earlier in the day, so maybe it fits a little bit better for Germany. And then we're going to be going to, in the later part of the day, we're going to be heading out to the Queens County Farm, which is actually the longest contiguous like continuously farmed piece of property anywhere in New York State. So one of the oldest continuously operating farms in the US ever since the late 1600s, actually 1697. So no worries, Alexa, there's a chance for tomorrow maybe. So then, yeah, we can do it then. So I'm walking east right now along Remsen, heading towards the boundary or the border of Brooklyn Heights on the east end of it, which is Camden Plaza and Court Street. To the south of us right now, we've got Atlantic Avenue. That's like the south is this way. And that's the southern border of Brooklyn Heights. So I figured I'm really close right now, so I'm not running that late, but just to show you a street that we're not going to see otherwise. So Remsen is what we're walking down right now. And like much of Brooklyn Heights, the vast majority of this street and of the whole district, the building that stands on the property right now is the first building that was built on this particular piece of property, on this land. Now, of course, I'm not counting the potentiality that Lenape people, the Native Americans that were here, and would use this high sandy plateau on the banks of the East River, which they called an Epatonga, that they wouldn't have had, of course, some sort of structures here as well at one time or another, but nothing compared to these massive brownstones that we see above us. Now, this particular area, here's the Brooklyn Heights Synagogue across the street, also decorated like a brownstone. Now, brownstones, as it turns out, are not actually like the best building material. They tend to deteriorate over time. They're specifically vulnerable to pigeon poop. Pigeon poop is sort of like the kryptonite in brownstone's Superman armor. But you know, that's how it is. They're still gorgeous. So we don't want to say no to them. Still love them very much. We're going to see a lot of brownstone buildings as we go. Oh, we've actually just crossed over Clinton Street. I think we're going to cross Clinton again later on, but to point it out, this Clinton Street here is named after one of my favorites, a guy that I often talk about on these tours, none other than New York Mayor, New York Governor, builder of the Erie Canal, interred resident of Greenwood Cemetery, DeWitt Clinton. Yes. And when the street is named after him by Hezekiah Beers, Pierpont, it's part of a promotional thing through Pierpont's property, which he'd been holding for decades, ever since he put the money behind Robert Fulton and his steam engine his ship steam engine, who had created the first steam-based ferry service across the East River. I keep drawing back to that again because it's so friggin' important for Brooklyn and Brooklyn Heights. It creates Brooklyn Heights as a commuter destination. When suddenly people who are working on Wall Street are saying to themselves, why am I commuting like for an hour north of Manhattan by horse and carriage back in the late 1800s, beginning of the early 1800s, talking about late 1700s, early 1800s, you'd already had a ferry service back and forth across the East River ever since the 1600s, but it was by boat, like a sailboat. It took forever, With Fulton and the steam engine powered steamships, you cut that commuting time from 24 minutes down to 12 minutes, and that was just so much quicker than riding a horse uptown or a carriage uptown. You could just take the boat right across from Wall Street. And Hezekiah holds all his property until there's enough of a demand that he starts to sell it off into folks. Oh, real quick, catching up on some comments. Diana, welcome. Good to see you. Very, very happy Saturday to you. And thanks for joining us. And Tage wrote here, I really love the heritage vibe. Brings you in and wraps you like a blanket of history and character. Ooh, you could write a script for one of these stories if you're not careful, Tage. Michaela, Germany has a rainy summer till now. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. I mean, especially because too much rain, right? Great, good. You guys are saying hi to each other. The rest of those comments. I love that. I love when you guys, we're all connecting together. So where are we? Well, we are Cadman Plaza. Actually, specifically this particular part of the plaza, down this end of it is Christopher Columbus Park. And we walked by here the other day and saw a statue of Christopher Columbus, as well as a statue up the park of Henry Ward Beecher. Tage writes, is the Manhattan Heights at all related to this one? The Manhattan Heights. Is that Washington Heights maybe you're thinking of? Where's Manhattan Heights? Google that for me and let me know where Manhattan Heights is. A heights is just referring to an area of high land, right? Or of a high space. And Brooklyn Heights is called that because of the fact that it is a high plateau. And that Ipatonga, that lookout point, which wasn't just a lookout into the harbor, but ultimately would become a lookout point for wealthy, early New York residents who were moving over here starting really after 1812. Right? That's when the real push becomes. Before that, it's farmland. There was a ferry, like I said, over to this side of the river in Brooklyn Heights. And that farmland and the ferry that was going back and forth was to help supply and support the farmers. And that's what it largely was, until the real first building effort won't come until the Revolutionary War. And that's because we were building forts to protect Manhattan, to protect New York City, as it was called, from the invading British in 1776. And then you get real larger constructions. Before that, really, when you hit 1800, you only have 10 houses in Brooklyn Heights. By 1861, there'd be 600 houses in Brooklyn Heights. So you can see how it really grew. But what we're looking at here right now, which those of you who were with me the other day, you've seen it before, so we won't take too long on it, but it is Borough Hall. Originally, this was the City Hall of Brooklyn, and it is a absolutely gorgeous Greek Revival building that when Brooklyn will join together with the other boroughs to make New York City the largest city in the world by the time that all those boroughs come together, as that New York was the largest city in America and Brooklyn was the third largest city in America together. It's a massive population which is swelling and swelling. Until 1898, this was Brooklyn's town hall. And then after that, when the boroughs consolidate together, it becomes just the borough city hall. So the borough hall, of just Brooklyn Borough. So Greek Revival, and it's a nice place for us to start up because it shows us kind of how much of a variety of architecture we are going to see today. We're going to touch upon almost every architectural style known, other than like real modernist architecture. We've just got so much old architecture here, and it remains because since the mid-60s, this whole district is landmarked, is protected. So you just can't change too much here now. And Tage writes, yes, I was thinking of Washington Heights. Washington Heights is on the Upper West Side, ironically where my mother is from, where she was born. Back in the day, a very Italian-American neighborhood, now a very Dominican-American neighborhood instead. Okay, so, right? Alexa writes, crazy how it grew. Absolutely. We got to remember that in 1880, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but in 1880, the population of Brooklyn was around 600,000 people. By 1920, it was just about 2 million people. Just think about that. Tripling in size within 40 years. Really, really kind of nuts. Now, the building that I'm focusing on here across the street for us to take a quick look at is the old Temple Bar building. It's the beginning of the Brooklyn skyscraper district. And in fact, when this building is built, it's a Bossert style construction from 1901. It is at 13 stories back then in 1901, the tallest building in Brooklyn. So this was the tall boy. But within a decade, there's a taller building built around the corner, which we're actually going to go and take a look at. But together, between this tall building, we can just see it behind that tower that's kind of peeking out behind the scaffolding, like back there. That's the building that takes the title of that suddenly being the tallest building in Brooklyn. The two of them together, along with several others in the neighborhood, become part of a new historic landmark district known as the Brooklyn Historic Skyscraper District. So we're going to actually walk up a little bit over towards the street, which is on the corner of Montague Street, named after, if you were with me the other day, you might remember Lady Mary Montague. Lady Mary Montague, who was a cousin of Hezekiah Beers Pierpont. And all those old families seem to be pretty incestuously related. I mean, not incestuously, but they're very closely related. Greenwood Cemetery's builder, Henry Pierpont, was Hezekiah's son. Well, Lady Montague, she wasn't just a great writer and poet. Well, not great. I mean, she was a writer and poet. I'm not going to say that she was a Truman Capote or anything like that, or an Arthur Miller, some of the other people that we're going to touch upon today here in Brooklyn. But something that I discovered in my research about Lady Montague is that she also was a big proponent of the smallpox vaccine, or inoculation. I don't know if that's the same thing. But there's this little farmer's market going on here, which is worth just giving you guys a quick look at. People doing their grocery shopping. And now we're gonna head up this street. We're gonna head up Montague now. So yeah, she did a visit to Turkey, good old Lady Mary Montague. And when she was over there, she'd seen what they were doing with inoculations against smallpox, and she said, "That's a great idea." And she brought that back with her to England and started the smallpox inoculations there into the late 1700s, I believe. Is when she must have been doing that, because she was born in the mid 1700s and dies in the early 1800s. So there we go. Montague Street named after her because, yeah, she was semi-famous. Much like DeWitt Clinton, right, who was very famous, one of the three most famous New York politicians after Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. DeWitt Clinton was like number 3, and Hezekiah Pierpont, he was no stranger to how to do good promotion. So Hezekiah, of course, names the streets through his properties that he is subdividing and building up and getting ready to sell. He's naming them after famous people, so that way he's driving demand, right? And remember, Hezekiah is also famous for waiting about 2 decades after he helps Robert Fulton start the first steam ferry across the East River, cutting the time of the commute. He waits and he waits for 2 decades before he starts to really sell off his subdivided properties, saving the best properties for him and his son Henry themselves. And we're going to see where those best properties were over on Pierpont Place later on today, over near the Esplanade or the Promenade, depending upon how you want to refer to it. Hi there, how's it going, my friend?
All right.
Hey. Tage writes, TD Bank on the right is actually Canadian from here. Oh, I missed the TD Bank. Actually, there was something that used to be there that was important and famous. I can't remember exactly what it was. This building here, just to give us a feeling of it, I mean, this is very clearly an Art Deco style down at the base. And just to give us a sense of how many different architectural styles we're going to be coming up against today as we walk around. This building here is today a city bank, but back in the day, as you can tell, it's much older than just good old Citibank. And the Greek Revival style architecture here was home originally in 1904 to the People's Trust building. Gorgeous, designed by the firm of Mowbray and Uffinger. Actually, you know what? It's not just Greek. If you look at it, there's Roman and also elements of Renaissance architecture as well. When you look at some of those columns and the overarching features. Now, I'm going to go into not that building on our right, but instead this one here, the Brooklyn Trust building, or the Brooklyn Trust Company building. We are going to go in here really quick, defying security, for a quick look because it really is that gorgeous. Now, this building on the outside, also quite spectacular, built 1915, as you can see, of course, now a Chase building. Unlike the neoclassical and the Greek, Roman, and Renaissance styles buildings that are next to it, here what we're looking at is a neo-Renaissance masterpiece from York and Sawyer. It's actually modeled after a 1600s or 17th century palace in Verona, Italy. And if you look up, guys, at the top here, let me zoom in a little bit for you. Can I zoom a little bit more with my wet, sticky, humid fingers? You get to see this? Come on, lighting. Work for me. Work for me. Ugh. It's like, I don't know if you guys can see that. Can you see in the shadow there? My phone's got so much glare on it, I can't really necessarily see what you're looking at. But can you see there in the shadows the names Reutlin, New Lots, and Red Hook? Yeah, let me know if you can see that, if I've got the coloring right. And then over here, you can see Greenpoint. Oh, come on, keep turning, gimbal. There you go. It's hard when you're zoomed in. Here you can see on this side in the shadow, you can see Greenpoint, Flatbush, and Wallabout. And Wallabout was the name of that bay directly in the East River here, actually where the British prison ships were largely located during the Revolutionary War. Okay, great, you can see it, Michaela, fantastic. Well, those names up there, those are the names of the different districts of Brooklyn that this building was serving. All right, so I'm gonna go in, take a quick peek inside the building. I'm not gonna do this for any other buildings today because we just do not have time if we wanna keep this to about an hour, but it is so worth it. Oh, it just closed. I cannot believe that. What time did it close at? Oh, you annoy me. 2 p.m. Oh, yes, it did just close. I can't, after all of that sell, huh? After all of that sell. See, now you have to start this tour again next time earlier. Sorry about that, guys. If anyone wants to pull up real quick, the Brooklyn Trust Company, now a Chase Bank building on the corner of Clinton and Montague in New York, and take a look at the inside roof, the kind of barrel vaulted roof. That's what I really wanted to show you guys. But unfortunately, who would have thought that the bank would have closed at 2 o'clock? Where are we, Europe? Things are supposed to be open 24/7 in New York. This city has fallen asleep. The building that we're looking at now across the street, continuing this kind of banking phenomena that we're seeing here, is the Franklin Trust Company building. Used to be a bank, no longer. Today, this building, which originally was built in 1891, Romanesque revival, 10 stories of which was converted into condominiums in 2009. So if you want to rent a condo in here, as of 2015, a 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment will cost you around $4,000 a month. And I'll tell you what, folks, them's Manhattan prices. Not just Brooklyn prices. So up and up. And then over here on this corner, what we see is St. Anne's and the Holy Trinity Church. Another neo-Gothic building. Now this one's designed and developed by a gentleman who did a lot of buildings in Brooklyn. His name, Menard Lefevre. And I'll tell you what, Brooklyn definitely caught Lefevre at one point. And this architect became one of the most pronounced and well-contracted architects in Brooklyn. In fact, 4 of his structures have been designated National Historic Landmarks, including this Holy Trinity Church. The church has a vaulted roof, which originally had a 275-foot tower, making it the most visible church, or most visible landmark in Brooklyn at the time. So much so that ships would actually look to Brooklyn and see the church steeple as a way to navigate into the harbor. Steeple unfortunately removed in 1906, and why? Because they were building a subway system nearby, right? We can see there's a Court Street station right over there. And they were concerned that the vibrations from the building of the subway would potentially cause the mighty steeple to fall. So didn't end up happening. The most important thing for me still to mention about this church is that you can see on the outside these glass windows, but inside there's actually a suite of 54 stained glass windows designed by a sort of a predecessor, if you will, of Tiffany's, a gentleman by the name of J. Bolton. And the windows are actually the very first stained glass windows installed in a church in America. In fact, they're so significant and considered so historically important, these windows, that you actually have one suite of the windows that were removed and are on permanent display even today at the Metropolitan Museum of Art over across the river in Manhattan. So, hi Eduarda, thanks for joining from Porto, if that's where you are right now. Always good to say hi to Portugal on one of these live streams. Thank you. Well, we touched on this building the other day as well, folks, and now we're walking by it again, going into a little bit more detail about the Brooklyn Historical Society building, although originally it was the Long Island Historical Society building. And why did they, Herman writes they made a movie about it. Herman, they made a movie about the stained glass windows inside of St. Anne Holy Trinity Church. That's amazing. Very cool. And Eduardo, thanks for confirming you're in Portugal. Give my love to all those around you, human or feline, from me. Well, we talked a little bit about the Long Island Historical Society building the other day, but here we are revisiting it because it is one of those that are really worth a revisit. And it's a chance for me to talk a little bit about the outside of it as well. You can see this bust, if you will, coming out of the side of the building. And let me zoom in a little bit more for you. Yes, there we go. And it is of a famous person from history themselves. The building itself is actually by George B. Post, who's most famous for the New York Stock Exchange building, although he also did the Williamsburg Savings Bank, which we'll probably be able to see in a little bit as well. But the sculptor of these busts is a gentleman by the name of Warner, Olin Levy Warner. Maybe it was Vanna. And on this upper facade there, the first guy that you see over on the left, that is Johannes Gutenberg, our Bible printer gentleman. And then over here, what you have, anyone want to guess who that is? I know it's a little bit tricky for you guys because there's a small delay and a little bit of a lag, but I'll let you take a look at that guy there, see if you can recognize him. And then I'm going to walk around so I can show you two more of the faces here. Hey, Marilyn! Thanks for joining. And Herman, I agree with you. It is cool. Oh, here we go. And then we've got another guy here and another guy here. So The guy all the way to the right, I guess you guys can guess who that is. That's pretty easy. He's got so many statues about him, and that's old Bill Shakespeare right there, right? To his side, the other person that we're looking at there is Michelangelo. Hey, prego, Michelangelo. But the guy that we were looking at before, who now we can see again from the other side of the tree, is Ludwig. Good old Ludwig van Beethoven. There we go. So, why is this building so important? Why does George Post himself, famous architect, end up getting involved here? Well, there's a lot of money behind the preservation of the history of Brooklyn, because when the Long Island Historical Society is founded in the 1800s, the people that are living here, well, just by the necessity of how many more people are moving to and arriving as residents into Brooklyn, it meant that they were watching the city, the fabric of where they were living, mutate in front of their eyes. And they wanted to preserve it. So that way they could, remember what was happening. In fact, let me see if this guy goes first. There you go. Always trying not to get hit and not to get in the way of any bikers. And also keep good visuals for you guys here. Yes, Eduardo, I agree. It is a beautiful building. And you can see here, like I promised, even though we are in Brooklyn, what are the words there in the front? It is originally the Long Island Historical Society, dedicated to the preservation of knowledge and history in all of Long Island, but especially Brooklyn, the furthest west part of that great Long Island. Okay. Where to next? Which way shall we head? We will go down Pierpont? Yes, we're gonna go down Pierpont Street. This building here on my right-hand side, real quick, a little bit close to it, it's the old St. Anne's School. Originally, this building was actually the Crescent Athletic Clubhouse. And like many clubhouses of the 18 and 1900s, it wasn't just a place for men, because of course women and minorities were forbidden, white men. It wasn't just a place for them to come together and smoke cigarettes. There was also athletics, there'd be a pool so people could work out and such, but it was a place where people would live as well. And you would, instead of having an apartment or taking over a whole brownstone yourself, you might just live in this building. Today though, as I was saying before, it is the St. Anne's School. It's a very progressive and highly selective school that actually is founded back in 1965. We've had a couple of famous people attend school here, including the lovely Jennifer Connelly and Lena Dunham, as well as Michael Diamond of the Beastie Boys. So some claim to fame at St. Anne's School. I keep on walking down Pierpont Street, named after Hezekiah Beers Pierpont himself, one of the two big developers of Brooklyn Heights. To the north of us, and north of Clark Street, which pretty much split Brooklyn Heights, what you had was the area owned by the Hicks brothers. And they were more concerned about providing new homes to the artisan class, more of a working middle class group of people. Whereas Pierpont was holding out for the wealthy, bigwigs. He wanted to get the Fifth Avenue class to consider coming over here instead to the other side of the river. And in the end, both of them had their own sorts of success. Pierpont, of course, is the name of the street that we're on right now. This building that we're looking at here is from 1844. It's actually built a year after the church that we saw around the corner, the St. Anne's and the Holy Trinity. This one here is the first Unitarian church. Unitarians are very liberal, progressive, group of, it's a religious organization dedicated to the kind of the study of religion, but not so much of a tract or dogma associated along with it. It is another one of our Lefebvre buildings. So catch that, catch the Lefebvre, Menard Lefebvre. So neo-Gothic, beautiful. Thank you, Menard, for your hard work along Pierpont Street. As we continue, we're looking at a building over here on our right-hand side. It's not really as impressive in some ways as many of these other brownstone and Gothic and neoclassical or neo-Renaissance buildings. It's kind of like a squat limestone, boring block of a building. But why is it so important nonetheless, despite lacking your Queen Anne eaves and all the rest, is because sometimes it's not all about the size, folks. It's about the motion. And this building sees a lot of movement. It's a small courthouse, but it serves 10 New York counties, making this appellate courthouse actually the busiest appellate courthouse in all of the United States itself. And also giving us a representation of yet another architectural style, right? Just kind of, oh my goodness, I can't believe I almost passed by it. 102 Pierpont. You wouldn't even notice it, right? Tage, good news. Apartments for rent, in case you're ready to come and pursue your literary dreams of moving to New York City. And if you were to move into this building, and rent something inside, you might be amazed to discover that you are staying in the apartment where good old Norman Mailer or maybe Arthur Miller had once lived, because both of those great authors were here at one point. Mailer lived here briefly with his parents after returning from his fighting in World War II. It's actually here where he began writing his very first novel, the controversial but still critically acclaimed The Naked and the Dead. Miller, Arthur Miller, he's the guy that wrote Death of a Salesman. He also lived in the building when he was just starting out. So there was all these stories about these guys having some sort of bitter rivalry and not getting along with one another. But apparently that was just for TMZ to write stories about. Later on, someone asked Mailer what he thought about Arthur Miller, and Mailer said, I can remember thinking, this guy's never going anywhere. That was pretty much it. Oh well. Poutines for payment. Right, Tage. Yeah, you wish you were getting paid in poutine, brother. All right, well, moving on to yet another gorgeous building here in New York. It is the Herman Bear Mansion. And honestly, guys, I can't turn the corner without having to stop and talk about yet another building. This stunning Romanesque revival building was designed by Frank Freeman. You want to talk about Canadians? Frank Freeman was Canadian. Well, he was American-Canadian. And Frank did a bunch of buildings around Brooklyn, including this gorgeous one here. So, what do you want to know about it? Let me tell you some things. Herman Bear, wealthy industrialist. His son, Carl, actually, was a tennis pro who survived the Titanic. He was on the second boat to get off of the Titanic, the owner or the builder of this building's son. So 1912, of course, when the Titanic goes down. 1919, the family relocated to upstate New York, because who wouldn't want to do that? The building was purchased and becomes the Palm Hotel. Pretty healthy addition to Brooklyn Heights' growing list of hotels. And unfortunately, things really start to change for Brooklyn Heights by the really by 1929, 1930. Going into the Depression, Brooklyn Heights Brooklyn in general has a real issue. And you got to think about it, because by 1930, right, by 1930, a lot of the buildings in Brooklyn Heights are already like 80, 90 years old. So a lot of it is no longer quite modern. And there's a lot of modernization that's taking place at that time as well. So the Frizzies, your older, gray-haired and wealthier people start to leave Brooklyn Heights and move to other surrounding neighborhoods. Think like Park Slope or Cobble Hill, offshoots from Brooklyn Heights that are in their own way or very much up and coming. And also you have in 1919, 1920, you have the completion of the subway to Brooklyn Heights, connecting us to not just Wall Street, so really that puts the steamships out of business, because no need to take a steamboat across the East River when you can take the subway for a nickel instead, and that being very dependable and quick in its own right. But also, that subway doesn't just connect Brooklyn Heights to Wall Street, it connects it all the way to Greenwich Village. And Greenwich Village is the home of the Bohemians. So you have a real influx already starting in the 1920s of Bohemian style people coming from Greenwich Village and moving their way over to Brooklyn Heights as the older, wealthier tenants or owners leave the Heights. These younger Bohemians will move in and replace them. And this building, in that same sort of feeling, that same sort of vibe, by the 1940s, the whole neighborhood had taken a real turn for the worse, kind of depression and post-depression. And the hotel goes out of business. Because simply put, it's no longer attracting tourists or people with wealth to come and stay here. And the hotel kind of transitions into a brothel for a while, until finally in 1961, it does like a complete flip-flop and goes from brothel to home for Franciscan monks. Brothel to monks. In 1977, finally this building is bought up by new owners, and it's turned into rental properties or rental apartments, which you could come and live in as well at this point. And that's because by the 77 is sort of like a little early for the big rejuvenation of Brooklyn Heights, but certainly by the mid 80s. There's something I just want to point out real quick, which is worth just showing you, something I saw during my research, and it just goes to show, whilst it's absolutely gorgeous brownstone, it has a real problem, and that is that brownstone falls apart. It's not super sustainable. And you can see that brownstone there on the facade is already collapsing down to, if we look down, you can see bits and pieces of the brownstone down here in the trench area, the moat, if you will. That's not good. That's bad. That's not what you want to see on your building. So not just that, but you see all the pockmarking that's happening. It's just eroding. So are you looking for a song, or are you saying is your screen frozen? I hope not. Alexa wrote, I enjoy the mix of old and new, plus old buildings just have a style that doesn't get done anymore. You have a lot of Art Deco in New York City that deserves to exist. Yes, absolutely. The thing about Art Deco was that it came later than Brooklyn, really, or Brooklyn Heights. Tage writes, are those balconies or just for the fire escape? There are what looks like small Juliet kind of balcony-esque things there for plants along the side, but then it's fire escape. That's what it is. It's the fire escape for sure. Fire escapes are really a mixed bag here in New York City, and my advice to you is not to go onto a fire escape unless there's a fire. You're probably safer staying off of the fire escapes in New York for the most part. Well, let me cross back over to the other side of the street once again and show you guys this building rising up from behind this sidewalk bridging you've been on previous tours with me of New York before, then you know that sidewalk bridging is something that buildings end up having to put up after the Department of Buildings, the DOB, has told them that part of their facade is falling down. And you cannot hit people with pieces of falling bricks. It's not good for them at all. This building that we're looking at right now is the Hotel Bossert. And built in 1909, it was, nicknamed the Waldorf Astoria of Brooklyn. One of those, along with the Hotel St. George, along with the Hotel Bossert, one of those high-end hotels that people were coming and visiting, celebrating in, having parties in, but also living in over as long-term residents. It's also here that some of the other residents that were here long-term, which were really important, were... Oh, really? I'm pausing, Tage writes. So it really is, that was a comment about it being frozen. It's strange. I'm not getting any mentions of it pausing. Usually my phone yells at me and says, Chris, you have a problem. You've got bad connection. Let me try crossing the street, see if it doesn't get better. Well, the point about the Hotel Bossert is that this is where the Brooklyn Dodgers celebrated their only World Series victory in 1955. It's also where many of the Dodgers lived. So unfortunately, like the Palm Hotel, which was that brownstone building around the corner, the old Bear Mansion, this building also suffers a decline going into the 30s and 40s. And thankfully, it's the Watchtower Society who joins in and ends up buying up this property. The Watchtower Society, better known as the Jehovah's Witnesses. Thank you, Tage, for explaining that the pausing appears to be on Facebook. Guys, if you're on Facebook right now and you're getting some pausing as you're watching the video, if there's some lag or pause, then consider going over to YouTube. It seems like YouTube is working better for some of us right now. So, like I was saying, the Jehovah's Witnesses, in 1983, they actually buy up and renovate the Bossert to be used as a residence hall and hotel for their missionaries. And then finally, by 2013, they've left. They've moved on, and they head to Warwick, New York, upstate instead, selling off lots of the property that they'd bought up throughout Brooklyn Heights. Rumored sale price, $90 million. So I'm not sure if they paid that, if the new owners paid that much or not, but one thing that I've heard about the Jehovah's Witnesses is that they did an excellent, excellent job of maintaining and preserving the buildings that they've worked on, or that they've owned. That they are very conscientious owners of those buildings. Now, if you don't know who the Jehovah's Witnesses are, what they're really famous for is using printed material to spread the gospel. Right? That they were big pamphlet printers, and often the people that are knocking on your door and dropping off a pamphlet from their kingdom halls, often their religious bases. They're pretty nice people, actually, and as a tour guide and historian, pretty grateful to you Jehovah's Witnesses out there for keeping such good care of all of our stuff. Guys, that is the weirdest thing. Jenny, thanks for letting me know, and Tage, thanks as well for saying that it looks like we've completely stopped on Facebook. There's no reason why that should happen. I haven't touched anything, still broadcasting. It's all still the same tour. So I don't understand why that would have happened. Grrr. But you know what? Show must go on. We're still here. Sorry, Facebook. Clearly, I will post the entire video up on Facebook later on because it didn't happen. I don't know what went wrong there. Well, okay. What are we looking at over here? We are now at none other than Pierpont Place. And you've got number 3 and you've got number 2 Pierpont. And where is number 1 Pierpont? Oh, number 1 Pierpont is now a playground. Well, that's unfortunate, because it was here, number 1 Pierpont, that Hezekiah Beers Pierpont, owner once of all this land, who had bought it up from the Livingston family, old Revolutionary time family. And this is where good old Hezekiah and Henry built their house at the most select destination here at the corner of Pierpont Street and Pierpont Place. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it's great. It's a kid's playground now. So instead, let's look at these other 2 buildings, which are lovely brownstones, just not quite as lovely as those other ones that would have been here previously. But this is number 2, number 3 Pierpont Place, and they were owned, number 2 was owned by Alfred Treadway White, a businessman and philanthropist, whose, kind of philanthropic cause, close to his heart, so to say, was to design and promote public housing for the poor that was humane, with light, fresh air, and green spaces. And number 3 Pierpont here on the left was occupied by the Lowe family. First by Abiel Abbott Lowe, who made an absolute killing on the Chinese tea trade, and then his son Seth Lowe, who served as mayor of Brooklyn and later at one point as the mayor of a newly consolidated New York City. So, Tage writes, FB site back up. 47, stopped at minute 47 a short time ago, not live now on FB. Well, anyway, if we're broadcasting again, great, I'm happy for it. And what a weird, strange thing to have happened. Well, we're coming up now on another historical site because it's directly in front of us that it once stood the House of the Four Chimneys. And the reason why the House of the Four Chimneys was such an important place is because it plays a role in the eventual decision to evacuate the colonial forces, the revolutionary forces, away from Long Island and cross over the East River to Manhattan over there. Now, this is after the Battle of Brooklyn. And if you've been on my tour of Greenwood Cemetery, then you know a little bit about the Battle of Brooklyn already. Long Island was a soft spot for the American defenders. It was easy for the British to be able to land troops anywhere along Long Island. They end up picking Gravesend over by Coney Island, in fact, to be able to land their troops. And the Brooklyn Heights, where we're in right now, this Ipatonga, as the Lenape people would have called it, this raised up space meant that we have these incredible views, but not just incredible views, we are elevated. And with the right type of cannon, you could fire directly over there into Manhattan, which is where Washington's main headquarters indeed were. But he had another headquarters for Brooklyn here in the House of the Four Chimneys, which, must have been cold winters underneath Four Chimneys, but this is where it was. And it's here that his generals, working together with Washington, they come to the consensus that after the Battle of Brooklyn, after hundreds, if not over 1,000 actually, revolutionary troops are captured, and many of them will die on British prison ships, it's time to evacuate. And they decide not to have a last stand fight along what would have been up here Fort Sterling along the promenade of Brooklyn and Columbia Heights. Instead, they decide in the middle of the night to wrap their horses' feet in Muslim cloth and put cloth on the oarlocks and move the entire remnants of his army across from where the ferry landing space would have been, usually, shipping stuff back and forth to the farmers on this side of the river, and escape into Manhattan and eventually all the way up Manhattan to Harlem Heights and then into Pennsylvania and such. So liberty, actually liberty enlightening. If you can see over there, just to the right of that crane, you can see a couple of domes rising out of the skyline there, and that is our good old Ellis Island. Immigration, come on. Why? The doesn't like it. Doesn't like it. All right. Well, let's walk along the promenade, why don't we? How am I doing for time? Oh no, it's an hour in? You need to talk faster. Because we keep getting stuck. We're not able to get as far. Okay, so, you know, it's not my fault. It couldn't be me. I'm not the one controlling the camera. Sorry about running a little bit slow. We're gonna go just a tad late, okay? Walking on top of the BQE, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. It was sort of the undoing of Robert Moses, the great. I don't know if I don't want to instead. The infamous new Parks Commissioner, ever elected in his entire time in public life. He was more influential than New York ever had, to be honest with you. I can see I've got an unstable internet connection right now. That it's going to fix itself very, very soon. Yep. Internet connection has improved again. Sorry about that. We're looking out here onto Manhattan Island. They say that the best views of Manhattan, of course, are from Brooklyn. And we now, as early as the 1840s, Walt Whitman, famous poet and 2-year editor of the Brooklyn Eagle, Brooklyn's newspaper, he would be to take advantage of these heights, could come and enjoy this incredible view. But to be honest with you, the owners at the time of behind the Brooklyn Heights with the best views, to share the view with a lot of resistance all through the 1800s to democratize this space and create access. Unstable internet connection. I've had a good. Apologize right now for it being a little bit crappy. I'm hoping it's gonna get better. I'm gonna keep talking. Yep, okay, better again. It's better again. It's good. All right. We can see a building that I lived in for a year back in 2017, I want to say. And that building right up there, one with the lived in that. So that brings back memories for me. Looking across over there, my old. I mean, you have so many iconic buildings, of course. One World Trade. You got the Gary residential building. You see just the top of 40 Wall Street there. Now Trump Building. We've got the Brooklyn Bridge, which very neatly kind of forms the north end of Brooklyn Heights. And that's where we're kind of walking towards right now. Over to our right-hand side, over here, this is Fort Sterling. And, you know, I mean, we can see a bunch more of those. Actually, we can't. The defensive forts, I was going to say, we can see more defensive forts in the harbor, which is true, but they're not Revolutionary War defensive forts. They're defensive as of 1811, 1810, 11, 12, for the building of those forts to to defend New York Harbor from those conflicts as well. Looking back across the river, I mean, we're not doing a tour of Manhattan. It's just so gorgeous. It's hard not to look over there right now, right? You can see the municipal building there with the golden lady up on top. We did a tour. We did a talk about that with our good friend Ryan when he was here in New York, and touring us across the Brooklyn Bridge. Well, can't come to New York and not up there. It almost doesn't look real, right? Iconic and beautiful. I love it. Give me some love. There, we're back. Okay, so if you got lagged out there for a second and we lost the connection for a moment, we've just left the Heights. Excuse me, we just left the Esplanade or the Promenade, which is just beyond that sidewalk bridging, and we're now walking up Pineapple Street. So I can show you 13 Pineapple right over here. And the reason why I want to show you this is that it really is an excellent example of a federal style house. This is a very typical style of building from the 1820s and 30s, as cities like Philadelphia, New York, even Boston took on this style of building. The houses that we'll see, federal style houses, are typically two and a half stories tall with an attic space ventilated by dormers, which are actually a form of window that project from the roof. Yeah, it's a large example of one of those buildings. Oh, Tage writes, look up Pineapple Hotel, Chris. It's in Manhattan and other cities, all pineapple themed. Adorable. Well, you know, the pineapple is the symbol of hospitality, so it makes a lot of sense to be the Pineapple Hotel. And there's one element of this which apparently is not typical of a federal style or federalist house, and that is this raised foundation. That's not something you would normally have seen. Oops. Okay. Well, let me see. Why don't I take you guys up the street to one more home. We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes, and we're getting long. It's getting a little long. I know that those who are not watching live will be hard pressed to follow all that time. But I want to take you guys up to 24 Middle Street because if we're going to be talking about all of these old buildings in Brooklyn Heights, we can't not visit the oldest still standing house in Brooklyn Heights, back from 1824. So we'll take a quick peek at that, and then I'll be honest with you, I only had a little bit more tour in me. And I think that I'm going to have to wrap that into a downtown Brooklyn tour, which we will inevitably need to do in the next week or so before I leave Brooklyn and my dog sitting comes to an end. I mentioned these guys earlier on, the Hicks brothers, right? So north of Clark Street, it was these guys who did most of the development. South of Clark Street, it was Hezekiah Pierpont who was doing the development. Hezekiah favored the larger lots. The Hicks brothers were using the shorter or smaller lots or parcels of land for less wealthy but more numerous occupants who were already here in Brooklyn. So, whoops. And I went slightly the wrong way. But it's not a problem, because the advantage of having gone slightly the wrong way is that we get to also take a quick look at Plymouth Church, which is where our old buddy Henry Ward Beecher, who we've seen a statue of just the other day in Columbus Park over in front of Borough Hall. Speed walker. You girl, you go Nordstrom Rack. Oh, she's got a kitty. She's carrying her kitty litter. Nice. Good for her. So Plymouth Church, built in 1849. We'll take a quick peek at, and then we're going to go over to Middaugh Street just because we happen to be so close to it. It's right here on our right-hand side, over on Orange Street, built in 1913. And this was the, Central Grand, or the Grand Central Depot of the Underground Railroad. Brooklyn Heights itself was an extremely abolitionist part of the country. You had a hotbed of abolitionists here, and Henry Ward Beecher was their mouthpiece. And it's weird considering that today you say Henry Ward Beecher, most people are like, no idea what you're talking about. But for 30 years, he was the most famous man in the United States. And there he is, once again. Many of the escaped slaves coming from the, South, the antebellum South, would end up making their way eventually here to this church, this exact place, Plymouth Church, and then to Canada. So that way they could not be recaptured and returned. But and actually sleep here at the church. Good is best known for, but although Henry Ward's sister, Harriet Beecher, AT&T looked so much better earlier on today, and now it's not so good. I don't know why. All right, now it's back. Great. Sorry about the little brief loss there, but I'm talking about good old Henry Ward Beecher's sister, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and she is famous for having written a little old book under a pen name. Can't remember what her pen name was. I think it was like Cottonwood or something like that. But she's famous for writing Uncle Tom's Cabin, which famously Abraham Lincoln will one day say to her in person, so you're the little lady that wrote that book that got the Civil War started. I don't think it's really fair necessarily to say it was her fault, but I think it was more of a nicety than anything else. All right, let's head down this street and get ourselves over to Middaugh. Take a look at that old church. Yeah, Henry Ward Beecher, fascinating guy, a little bit of a player. When the men would cross over and head on the steamship to Wall Street, Henry Ward Beecher would visit the ladies at the church and share his passions with them. Ah, thank you, Tage. Crowfield. What did I say? Cotton something? Cottonfield? Crowfield? Pretty close. Christopher Crowfield. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. Little hand. Yeah. Up in front of us. Back. It. Oh, internet connection. Just gonna find, there it is. Okay, I think this is a good spot. I show that I've got internet connection. And this is it, 1824, oldest house in Brooklyn Heights. Although there are other houses on this street that actually date back as old as the 1820s, it's only 24 Middag that has remained unaltered in its original shape and size, its original building right here. The front of the house shows us just what a great example of a federal style house can look like. And up there on the top, you can see those dormers, right? Those dormer windows, where those extra windows kind of come out of the rooftop itself. That's what I was talking about with dormers before. What else do we have? It's kind of neat. Little, hopefully I won't lose the connection here as I get closer to it.
And that's, I think, the
Right
difference
there.
is, I think that's, I was talking to Mark.
A little bit of this, a boot scraper. Because back then in the 1800s, actually, men would wear their pants short, in fact. Their pants would only go down to, or their trousers would go down to like there, so they'd have space, right, between where their trousers ended and where, because the streets were covered in the poop of our back in the day. So you're walking down the street and all that muck, get that horse poop off my feet, you know, and your trousers wouldn't get dirty. Short to get into the horse muck. So I think that actually it's worth walking around just the side one last time here, because whilst this is the main house at 24 Middag, you can see the small carriage house here in the back as well. And the carriage house, so more expensive than cars, believe it or not, horses. All right, well, do you guys feel like you've gotten a bit of a sense of Brooklyn Heights now? I've seen a lot of different styles, from the more residential area here, closer to the promenade, to the more business area, down towards Cadman Plaza and towards Borough Hall, and the east end of Montague Street, which is more commercialized, where the banks were, taking advantage of all that money that was pouring into Brooklyn at the time. There's so much to talk about. We could keep on going. A glass of break after talking to you guys for an hour or so straight. I hope that my voice has been somewhat soothing and enjoyable. Will join me tomorrow for a double header, perhaps even, because I will be going out to the Queen's Botanical Gardens for a earlier tour, and then I'll be going from there onwards to the Queens County Farm for a later tour. We're going to do the earlier tour at 11 a.m. and the later tour at 2 p.m. like usual. So maybe tomorrow then. If you're still there, guys, goodbye. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. I hope that you make some time for yourself. You give yourself a break. Take a moment to breathe. And thanks for teleporting here to Brooklyn with me and jumping on a tour. It's wonderful to do it. It's wonderful to be here with you. And it means the world that you let me share some knowledge and history, and that even if we can't all be physically together right now, that virtually we can come together for a little bit of time and enjoy each other's company. Your comments do a ton for me. They help a lot to let me know that I'm not just talking to myself, which would not be an abnormal New York thing to do, but so much more fun to talk to you guys. Let's just put this down for a second. And as we say goodbye, quick glass of water. So good. So good. Tage asks, when the cruise ships come back, can you do a sail away tour in September? See them leave, combined with another area? That's a cool idea. I bet the cruise ships, I mean, they'd love for me to hop on and do a live stream. And maybe take like a tender, like the last tender back out or something like that. It's a cool concept. I know they love the promotion, so yeah, not a bad idea, Tage. Thank you. And Mila, thank you. And anyone else who's still out there and didn't get lost in the Facebook jam up when we lost Facebook, then thanks for hanging with me till the end. I will post this up on Facebook now as well, so the whole thing's up there. It's a little bit strange that we lost the old connection, eh? And that's it. All right. Well, guys, take care. Have an absolutely wonderful day. I don't know if my connection's poopy now, but my comments have stopped. So just know that you're out there and that you guys are happy, and that I'm happy making you happy. So until the next time that I have the great honor and the great pleasure of showing you a little bit of history, a little bit about my world and the places that I get to enjoy learning about and walking around through. I would bid you a farewell and a wonderful Saturday from Brooklyn Heights. Take care, guys, and we will see each other very soon. This is Chris Sandeman signing out from Brooklyn, New York. Bye-bye.